After Derek's betrayal, Skylar's brain short-circuited and she agreed to a blind date set up by Vance's friend Ant. It was the first time Skylar saw Adrian, a charcoal suit cut to perfection, gold-rimmed glasses, phoenix eyes that carried a cool detachment. Yet the instant they landed on Skylar, something rippled behind them. Skylar is a sucker for pretty faces. Honestly, if Derek hadn't been so good-looking, she wouldn't have wasted years on that jerk. But beside Adrian, Derek looked like a third-rate extras. I'm getting older. I want a suitable wife. As long as Skylar is willing to build a life with me, she'll never be treated poorly. Skylar was already dizzy from Adrian's face. Add that velvet voice and her knees turned to water. She said yes, on the spot. After the wedding, Adrian kept his word. He never let Skylar want for anything, emotionally or materially, even in bed. The moment Skylar said stop, he froze, hoarsely scooped her up, and carried her to the bath. Skylar realized she was falling for him, hard. At first she'd assumed a man like Adrian would work insane hours, come home reeking of conference room coffee, and treat marriage like another quarterly report. Instead, every evening he cooked the dishes she loved and waited for her to walk through the door. Housework never touched her hands. All she felt from him was gentleness, and it drove her crazy, because gentleness felt like distance. One night Skylar dragged home 3 hours late. Work a disaster. Sky long since black. Under the warm lamplight, Adrian sat reading, gold-rimmed glasses low on his nose. Hearing her, he looked up. You're late. Everything okay? Skylar pictured her boss's spit-flecked tirade, kicked off her shoes, and ran barefoot into Adrian's lap, burrowing for the faint citrus scent she loved. Adrian went rigid. The book snapped shut. She heard it drop, and then warm palms settled on her back, patting gently. The day's injustice spilled out in tears. She cried quietly against his shirt while he stroked her hair and said nothing. When the storm passed, it hit her. This was their first real intimacy, the kind that had nothing to do with sex. All cried out, "Want to tell me what happened?" His low voice was a tranquilizer. Skylar saw her swollen eyes reflected in his. She snuggled closer and rambled out every grievance. Adrian listened like the world had stopped. That night he helped her rewrite the problem deck, walked her through every slide, then ordered takeout and queued up the movie she loved. Halfway through the credits, Skylar knew she was gone for him. Weeks later, the same gentleness started to feel like a pane of glass she couldn't break. Adrian was never angry, never impatient, never anything. Skylar was terrified that if she confessed her insecurity, he'd politely withdraw. So she swallowed it until Chloe dragged her to a bar for one drink. She hadn't touched alcohol since the wedding. 3 cocktails in, Derek slid into the booth. Seeing his slimy grin, Skylar recoiled, straight into a familiar chest that smelled of citrus. She tilted her head and met Adrian's unreadable stare, darker than she'd ever seen it. After extracting her from Chloe, Adrian drove home in silence thick enough to choke on. The smart lock had barely clicked when he pinned her to the wall and kissed her, hard, tasting of anger and something raw. When she whimpered, he only growled against her mouth. Finally, he tore himself away, forehead pressed to hers. "Why were you with Derek?" His voice cracked with something dangerously close to hurt. "I wasn't. He just showed up." Adrian's eyes dropped. His hair was mussed from her fingers. "Baby, I'm not old. Don't see him again, okay?" Earlier his friends had teased him about robbing the cradle. Then he'd walked out and spotted her with the ex who'd shredded her heart. Skylar's alcohol-soaked brain blurted, "You don't even love me." Adrian blinked, then snapped, "Who told you that nonsense? That's why you met him?" Joy detonated in her chest. "I didn't." Her explanation vanished under his kiss. This time she kissed back, and the night exploded into touch and breath and skin. Much later, drifting in and out of sleep, Skylar felt Adrian nip her ear. "Baby, you're never seeing him again. Baby, I love you." Flash forward, their routine settled into calm courtesy. Adrian indulged every whim. At first Skylar basked in it, but the glass wall was still there, so she turned into a full-time brat. "The egg's overdone. I'll fry another. And the orange juice has pulp." "You hate pulp. Okay, next time I'll strain it. This water's past 140, undrinkable. I'll add some cold." Skylar deflated on the sofa, watching Adrian move through the kitchen like a patient ghost. At first, Adrian didn't know how to cook at all. Then Skylar offhandedly said she found a man who could cook attractive, and Adrian enrolled himself in Culinary School 101. Whatever, maybe it's for the best. That night Skylar had dinner with her college classmates. A little tipsy, she agreed to play the tissue passing game. Tyler was in the circle, too, but that was ancient history. When the tissue reached Skylar, she stared at the boy she once crushed on and felt a twinge of guilt. Still, it's just a piece of tissue, right? What could go wrong? The moment Skylar shut her eyes and leaned in, a large hand covered her forehead. "Time to go home, baby girl." Skylar turned and met Adrian's smiling face. except the smile never reached his eyes. She swallowed hard, said hurried goodbyes, and followed him out. Once inside the car, the engine stayed silent. Skylar's pulse hammered. She sneaked a glance at Adrian. When his gaze swung to her, she blurted, "It was only a tissue game. I swear, I love you and nobody else." Adrian stared out the window, saying nothing. The silence was suffocating. Skylar gave his sleeve a small tug. Adrian pulled away. Regret pooled in her stomach. Alcohol made tears rise faster than she could stop them. When he heard her sob, Adrian froze. Then he turned and drew her gently into his arms. "Baby girl, I was furious. You have no idea how mad I got when I saw your lips an inch from that guy's face." Skylar rattled out apologies, promising it would never happen again. Adrian stroked her hair, waves crashing behind his irises. "No next time, right?" Skylar nodded so hard her vision blurred. Adrian murmured that she owed him. Before she could ask how, the car purred to life. The next noon, Skylar woke up with aching hips. Adrian stood bedside, holding a bowl of porridge and smiling like a saint. Only now she knew what compensation meant. "Please let him stay the gentle house husband and skip any other mood." Skylar wailed inside. "Come on, baby girl. Eat up. Rest today. Recharge." He tucked her hair behind her ear and whispered, "We continue tonight." Ever heard a demon purr? Skylar had, loud and clear. Essay 3, Smoke. Adrian was several years ahead of Skylar. When she was a freshman, he was already an honored alumnus invited back to speak. At the welcome ceremony, he stood under the spotlight in a crisp black suit, gold-rimmed glasses catching a halo of light. One glimpse and Skylar couldn't look away. When Adrian's gaze swept the audience and locked with hers, her heart literally skipped. She thought their paths would never cross again, until a club retreat when she slipped outside for air. A thin ribbon of smoke rose in the dark. Above the ember floated a half-lit face she recognized. "Have we met?" he asked, turning. His phoenix eyes hid behind the haze. After months of persistent accidentally encounters, Skylar finally turned Adrian into her husband. Only after they lived together did she realize he wasn't ice at all. She loved curling in his arms no matter what they were doing. His skin carried the scent she'd chosen for him, citrus and amber, like a private brand that said he was hers. One idle afternoon, Skylar rummaged through his study and found a photograph. A girl with a cigarette between her lips, smiling at the lens. An inexplicable panic clutched her. She knew she'd missed chapters of Adrian's life. Chapters that mattered. Dizzy, she set the photo down and fled. When Adrian came home, the apartment was dark except for a glowing red dot on the coffee table and the faint smell of tobacco. The yellow bulb made her eyes sting. When she opened them again, Adrian, in his trench coat and night chill, was staring at her in alarm. "This smoke stinks," she rasped, then jumped at her own voice. Feeling wronged, she flicked ash that landed on her finger. The burn hurt so badly, she burst into noisy tears. How much of that cry was pain? How much heartbreak? She couldn't tell. "My throat, everything hurts." She hadn't meant to wail. It only made her feel childish. But she couldn't stop. Adrian pulled her close, kissing the tears away. "Who upset my baby girl? Point me at him, okay? Am I too childish? I'll grow up. I swear. Just don't leave me." He stiffened, then chuckled. She felt the low rumble against her cheek. "Why would you think that?" He fetched the first aid kit. Cool burn cream spread over her fingertip while she sniffled. "We got married because I love you. I love you exactly as you are. Got it?" He packed the kit away and wiped her cheeks with his thumb. "But those important years, I wasn't there." "God, you're adorable," he laughed. "The most important years are the ones I spend with you. I plan on that being forever. Still, it's my fault I never told you. Want to hear the whole story now?" Skylar pressed her lips, then nodded. Outside, the year's first snow began to fall, soft as cotton. Inside, under the warm lamplight, Adrian rested his chin on her head and turned the album pages one by one, narrating every memory until the past became theirs. Essay 4, Mid-Autumn. Mid-Autumn had to fly to Toronto for work, so this is the first Mid-Autumn and Adrian have spent apart since the wedding. The temperature seems to have dropped overnight. Skylar pulls her coat tighter, juggling the plastic bag of instant ramen as she hurries home. "I know, I bought myself a ton of goodies, so don't worry. And Skylar, you have to eat properly even when you're overseas, okay?" Under the vintage street lamp a few ginkgo leaves tremble. After years together, Skylar has grown used to Adrian taking care of every little thing. With Adrian gone, it feels like a corner of her heart is missing. A mischievous gust of autumn wind brushes the nape of her neck. The chill makes her shiver, and she snaps out of her daze only when she's safely inside. Skylar can't stand ramen that's just soaked in hot water. The small pot sputters on the stove. Outside, fireworks bloom and laughter drifts in, drowning her loneliness. She wonders, if Adrian were here, they'd probably be strolling a snow-dusting street, nibbling sweet and sour, candied hawthorn, gossiping about the mind-numbing office politics. Maybe Adrian would be home home, wearing the tiny dinosaur apron Skylar picked out, making a batch of Coke glazed just the way she likes. Maybe he'd cradle her in the chaise by the floor-to-ceiling window, the full moon shining outside, while she retells the moon rabbit legend for the 100th time. Corny as it is, Adrian would still listen patiently. SSSSS. The pot boils over and yanks her back to reality. She kills the burner and stares at the scorched noodles with a wry smile. Ugh. I miss you so much. It's all your fault. I hate it when you travel. She curls on the sofa, firing off voice notes to Adrian. But after a dozen messages, there's still no reply. Probably busy. She tosses the phone aside. The house is dark. She hugs her knees, watching the silver moonlight wash over the floor. Mind whirling, the smart lock chirps. Skylar dashes to the door, so fast she forgets her slippers. Adrian stands there travel-worn, a huge armful of her favorite Scottish roses in his arms. Tired smile softening his eyes. Hey, baby, I'm home. Skylar launches herself at him, breathing in the familiar citrus and amber scent that always steadies her heart. Like a magician, he keeps pulling out presents, mini cakes, scented candles, a necklace, chocolates. She's so busy unwrapping happiness that she doesn't notice him slip into the kitchen. Only when he sets a steaming bowl of hand-folded wontons in front of her does she remember the ruined ramen still crusted to the pot. Baby, didn't you promise you'd eat properly? She rubs her nose, mumbling that alone she only needs something fast. She can cook. She doesn't really need Adrian. Baby, it makes me happy that you need me. He cups her cheek and leaves the lightest kiss on her lips. Next trip I'll prep every ingredient beforehand. No more skipped meals. Understood? Snuggled against him, she eats the mousse cake he brought while the Mid-Autumn Gala plays on TV. Outside, fireworks thud open against the black sky, painting clusters of color around the bright silver moon. Adrian's kiss feather touches the crown of her head. Happy mid-autumn, baby. I love you. Skylar. Essay 5, older essay, silver age 17. A cicada loud green summer. Skylar first saw Adrian in the Sterling Estate Gardens. He was Ryan's friend, only a few years older, yet he carried himself like some stern antique, naturally playful. Skylar found that stiff seriousness fascinating. Teenage girls are curious about grown-up matters, and Skylar was no exception. She and Chloe talked about those things all the time, ending every conversation in blushing giggles and half-hearted shoves. One evening curiosity struck. Would Adrian know about that stuff? When Adrian's family came over that night, a last-minute banquet emptied the house. Skylar feigned fatigue and stayed behind with him, pretending cluelessness. She wandered into his study. Honestly, he might be wooden, but he treated Skylar with almost indulgent kindness, and looks-wise he was top-tier. If only he weren't Ryan's friend. Seeing her hesitate, Adrian closed his book, removed his gold-rimmed glasses, and fixed his dark gaze on her. Something wrong? She shelved the wild thoughts, heart inexplicably racing. In for a penny. Hey, mister, I've got a couple questions. The form of address made him freeze. It struck her she'd never called him that before. Glancing at the position encyclopedia Chloe had texted, she felt even bolder. She stepped closer, eyes wide and innocent, and handed him the phone. So, can people really bend like this? His pupils flared the instant the screen lit up. Crimson crawled over his ear tips. He seemed to wrestle for control, fingers trembling ever so slightly. Skylar savored the reaction, secretly thrilled, yet kept her expression shy and puzzled. Skylar, you're still young. You don't need to think about this yet. His voice had gone husky. Mission accomplished. She retrieved the phone, bid a coy goodbye, and missed the tight clench of his jaw and the dark tide in his eyes as she left. After that day Adrian paid her even more attention, casual touches that sent her imagination bobbing like driftwood. She kept repeating the mantra, he's Ryan's friend, off limits. Nothing good can come of it. Still, the feelings swayed her, and she tried to avoid him, though she often caught flashes of frustration and bewilderment in his gaze. Years slipped past in a blur. Doesn't Skylar think a guy with a silver stud is ridiculously hot? Little bro. Who else knew the mortification of gossiping with Chloe only to be overheard by one of Ryan's friends? Fortunately Adrian merely nodded at Skylar and kept walking. Skylar slammed the door in a panic, heard Adrian's steps fade into Ryan's study, then finally exhaled, shaky but unscathed. The moment filed away as no big deal. Skylar's 20th birthday bash. Dead on her feet, she slipped into Sterling. Amber light pooled over Adrian. The first thing she noticed was the angry red swelling on Adrian's ear and the silver glint of the stud. In that that dazed heartbeat she flashed back to being caught mid-gossip. Could it be? Adrian didn't turn. Long fingers swirled the scarlet in his glass. The tailored suit sketched a perfect line. Skylar swallowed. Shamefully audible. Sit. I need to talk to Skylar. Skylar perched opposite him, stomach fluttering with a hope she barely dared name. The wine slid down his throat. His eyes turned hazy. Impossible to read. Cub. Skylar shivered, gaze snapping up. I want Skylar to know I'm Skylar Ryan's friend. But I don't want that to be all I am. They were adults. Of course Skylar caught his drift. Yet, I'm in love with Skylar. The words struck the carpet like a gavel. Adrian never moved without certainty. So what was Skylar still debating? She rounded the table, straddled him, fingertip grazing the silver stud, feeling his breath catch and his hands tighten at her waist. Little bro, I'm 20 now. She laughed against his mouth, kiss deep and slow, palm sneaking under his shirt until he captured her wrist. Brows knitted. Skylar pinched his swollen lobe. The sting flashed through him, but he only brushed a kiss across her knuckles. No rush. Cub. When Skylar's a bit older, we have forever. I don't want Skylar to give herself to me lightly. That wouldn't be fair. Eyes dark with want locked on hers. Skylar's heart melted. Skylar, does it hurt? You silly thing. Adrian smiled, arms looping around her, chin settling on her shoulder. Not anymore. Do you like it? Skylar felt the care in every breath. I love it. Love everything about Skylar. Soft laughter punctured the hush. Warmer than candlelight. Outside, fireworks bloomed across the sky. Happy birthday, Cub. Let me love Skylar for the rest of our lives. After they married, Adrian only a handful of years older, he defaulted to caretaker mode. The first months of cohab, Skylar would come home to Adrian in a tiny dinosaur apron, humming over the stove. Skylar flung her coat away and lunged for the sink to rinse bok choy, but water-beaded fingers closed around her wrist. She looked up into gentle eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses spattered with droplets. Baby, go sit. Grease fog out here. I've got it. He pinched her cheek, smiling. When work drove her to pull all-nighters, Adrian appeared with warm milk. Skylar collapsed against him, nose buried in the calming wood smoke of his cologne while he kneaded her temples, asking if he could shoulder any of the load. In 3 years of marriage, she'd never seen him lose composure, until the night she got trashed wooing a client and wound up huddled on a curb waiting for pickup. Season's first snowflakes drifted down as Adrian rushed over, coat flapping open. He wrapped her in wool. When she looked up, his eyes were red-rimmed. Why didn't Skylar tell me? Every contact I have is Skylar's. Why not ask? I back Skylar's career. I know Skylar wants to build something alone, but we're married. Talk to me. Baby, please, let me help. Don't carry it solo. Skylar had never heard that many words spill out of him. Speechless, she hugged him back, tears mixing with a helpless grin. With her he was an oak, steady canopy, weatherbreaker, always. Yet, tonight the apartment stayed dark when she came home late. Moonlight slanted through the door, spilling over Adrian alone on the sofa. Skylar padded closer. He surfaced from his daze, hiding exhaustion behind a quick smile. Home, sorry, I blanked on dinner. Hungry. What sounds good? Skylar folded him into her arms. Babe, don't hoard the weight. I'm right here. His frame stilled, then arms banded around her, the big man trembling in her lap. She stroked his back. Quiet company. Only then did Skylar grasp that Adrian could fracture, could flounder. That night the moon hung high, stars speckled like scattered salt while clouds unraveled overhead. For a month Adrian lived at the office, returning later and later. Skylar understood, yet loneliness nipped at her heels. On their anniversary she waited until messages sank like stones, ready to hunt him down. She opened the door to a blaze of crimson blooms and Adrian's sure smile, the look of a man who'd finally closed the deal. Skylar met his gaze and beamed. Happy anniversary, babe. Happy anniversary, baby.